Yes, we can hear you. Please start when Zoom says
Suppose,
recording in progress.
Oh,
is my audio okay?
Yes, ma'am.
yes, ma'am, you're audible. Okay, I'll begin. Namaste and greetings. I, Rashida Jaurawala, researcher at IPRI, Impact and Policy Research Institute, Prabhav Evam Niti Anusandhan Sansthan, Nai Delhi, extend my warmest welcome to you all at IMPRI Web Policy Talk. Today, on the occasion of International Women's Day, we are convened for a panel discussion titled Rights, Justice, Action for All Women and Girls. This event is organized by IMPRI Gender Impact Studies, GISC. This special edition of the Web Policy Talk series brings together distinguished experts, policymakers, legal practitioners, and development leaders to reflect on both the progress achieved and the challenges that continue to shape the pursuit of gender equality. While important strides have been made through policy initiatives, advocacy, and institutional reforms, gender gaps still persist across critical areas such as education, employment, political representation, access to justice, health, and economic opportunities. The discussion will examine current trends influencing gender equality, explore policy and legal frameworks aimed at advancing gender justice, and address the intersectional realities that often deepen inequalities and affect inclusive governance. By bringing together diverse voices from research, policy, and practice, the session seeks to encourage thoughtful dialogue on the structural barriers that remain and to identify meaningful, action oriented pathways that can help move societies closer to a more just, inclusive, and equitable future for all. The chair and moderator is Professor VIBHUTI Patelji, visiting distinguished professor IMPRI. Today's expert panelists include Ms. Amarjeet Kaur, General Secretary, All India Trade Union Congress; Dr. Vahida Nainar, Independent Researcher, Gender and Human Rights Consultant; Ms. Cynthia Stephen, Social Policy Researcher, Gender and Development Specialist, Women's Rights Activist, and Independent Journalist; Dr. Prateeti Barman, Associate Professor, Faculty of Humanities and Social Sciences, Assam, Downtown University, Guwahati, Assam; Dr. Sneha Gole, Assistant Professor, Department of Women and Gender Studies, Savitribai Phule University, Pune University. The conveners of the program are Dr. Simi Mehtaji and Dr. Arjun Kumarji. To begin today's discussion, I am honored to invite Professor Vibhuti Patelji, Chair and Moderator, to share her opening remarks. We welcome you, ma'am, and over to you.
Yeah, thank you, Rashida Jaurawala, for your welcome address. And first of all, I would like to express my heartfelt thanks to Dr. Arjun Kumar, Dr. Simi Mehta, who took initiative, and also Priyanka Negi, who coordinated the whole event, and I welcome and greet today's panelists and esteemed participants. International Women's Day for 2026, it is taking place at the backdrop of intensified conflict in the Middle East, with the theme focusing on rights, justice, action for all women and girls, and Give to Gain. That is a global campaign which is envisaged by the UN Women. And it is we are also concerned about what all is happening domestically also. We see a situation where there is a massive backlash of gender-based violence, hypermasculinity, misogyny, and daily incremental struggles that we win in our local context. But if we see the macro reality, it is quite disturbing. So it is in this context that we are talking about today. Kevna Desai, she penned a poem on International Women's Day. Generally, she's very jubilant and celebratory when it comes to 8th of March. But this time she has written, "For years we asked, how should we celebrate? The question echoed through squares and street corners. We dug into history, pulled out its buried stories, tears, struggle, victories wrested from darkness. We celebrated them in open streets. On blank pages, we painted festivals of words. Pink gulal rose into the sky. Freedom became a song, and we danced, spinning with joy at every crossroad. But the question has changed now, from how shall we celebrate to how can we celebrate at all? A quiet bewilderment remains on a shroud wrapped in white garlands. What color does the bloom? What color dares to bloom? When lips are sealed, voices are suffocated, what song can rise? When the present is being erased, do we return to the past? On a blank page, can anything be drawn except smudges? Tell me, what is left to celebrate today? So I think this is the question so many people, so many women who have been in the women's movement for past 5 decades, who have sacrificed their whole life for the women's cause, they are asking that how are we going to answer the current geopolitical situation? So my first question is to a veteran leader, Amarjeet Kaur, who has been active since the early 70s, who has taken part in all the global, regional, and national and local level struggles as well as deliberations. That can you provide an eagle's eye view of yours on women's predicament in the current geopolitical context and the nature of action needed from the global women's rights movement, and how do we attain transnational feminist solidarity? Over to Comrade Amarjeet Kaur.
Thank you, Vibhuti ji, for giving this opportunity to me to be one of the panelists today on this important day. In the background, as you told about all conflicts going on, war going on in the Middle East area. First of all, the subject chosen, rights, justice, and actions. It is in continuum. Nothing stops. It is a forward movement, it is a backward movement, then again it is a resurgence, again we pushing back. But every time when we go further, we achieve some more. Maybe we are pushed back, we achieve some more. So it is in continuum. Naturally, the rights emerge when the needs are there, when the demands are there, when there is growth of science, that also generates more demands. When the movements are there, agitations are there, all this creates a situation where the question of rights getting increased, demands of rights getting added. This is a continuum process. Uh, and it very much depends on forward and backward motion. Who are the ruling dispensation? What is the socio-cultural outlook of those who are ruling? What kind of changes they want in policies or in administration, in defining rights and the justice, and in delivering rights and justice. It very much depends on who are the ruling dispensations and what are the policies. That is why if you get progressive thinking, liberal people being in the power structures, then you are able to defend your rights and then you are able to assert for more rights. But if the ruling dispensation is backward looking, this is applicable at domestic level also, and from micro up till national level, and it also depends on what happens in the international era. So those who are in power structures, how they view the things, this impacts us. And that's why it becomes a continuous process. Those who are fighting for rights to always remain alert, to react anything what is happening, to think about new strategies, how to defend your hard-won rights, and to think that to go further advance and not to remain stuck up. So that becomes the responsibility. So naturally, justice is related with this whole question. Again, in from whose lens, how you look at justice. This is also important. It may be justice from one angle for somebody, it
Audio
may
is
not
cut
be
point.
justice from the other person's eyes. So, justice itself, who is defining justice and who is delivering justice, and what are the overview of those persons, individuals, or institutions, or the administrative apparatus, it depends on that. So this also is a continuous process. It is very much related with rights and justice, because when they are rights, you want those rights to be delivered to you, and if they are not delivered, you are demanding for justice. And then this defining of justice is also very, very important, because it is also used as a relative term in the society by the governance, by the machinery everywhere. So the policies and structures again decide about as far as justice is concerned. And action is always a everlasting process. Without any action, you cannot preserve your rights, and you cannot preserve your right to justice, and you cannot fight for improvements into the rights or delivery of justice. So it's important that actions is the most important part of it, because that will depend on how through actions you will safeguard achieved rights and you will move for further rights. And with actions you will be able to scrutinize that on the given rights is the justice being delivered, and what is the weakness in the justice system. So action is definitely most important. Now, looking at this whole international scenario which is going on at present, just before this US-Israeli aggression began on Iran, whole world was upset what went on in Gaza Strip, and more than 70,000 people who died over there. 20,000 were children, and half of these were out of the total women and children. So women suffer in every situations. In peacetime, they suffer. If the regimes and the justice delivery people or those who decide about rights, if they are against the whole concept of gender justice, and they are the victims whenever the powerful hierarchy or the patriarch system wants to achieve what they want to achieve, then again it is the body and mind and the values or the rights of a woman on which they put their foot and they want to go ahead. So in the war situations also, the worst sufferers are, of course, women and children. They are the worst sufferers, as we are seeing now, and they are the easy targets also. No, it was so surprising. America said that in combat, we attacked Iran. Everyday changing statement. It was not combat. Combat is when some country has attacked you and you are countering it. That is combat. But Iran had not attacked America, was in the peace negotiations. They were busy in peace negotiations, and the last talk they had was just one day before the attack happened. In that, both the sides were positive, those who were sitting in the negotiations, that we have agreed on several things, and a little bit more concerns remain, and this time the peace talks will be successful. Last time also peace talks were going on when this attack on Iran had happened, and now also this time people were feeling that atomic energy has told that they are not making any bombs, so this is known to the worldwide, and now they are promising even to go back even whatever they are doing. So this time the talks might go ahead, but that did not happen. All of us are witness what happened on 28th of February. Now there, where was the first attack? On a girls' school, and almost up till now 185 deaths have happened. So those young small children, young girls among them also, they became victim. And now when the damages are coming, what we saw in Gaza, we are witnessing here, and we have been witnessing wherever the war situation happens, how a mother is trying to protect the children, and how children's suffering she has to witness and she has to take care of. So, looking at the home devastation and her whole world going away and the children suffering, that is what happens in the war situation. And in that, naturally, the present slogan for our 8th March has to be no wars and we want peace. This particular war totally unjustified. Naturally, Iran has retaliated on the wherever they have their establishments, American establishments. Iran is again and again telling we are not disturbing other civilian population in Middle East, but we are attacking from where America is attacking us. They have their bases there, they are saying. But in any case, when Iran will do that and is doing that, some collateral damage will happen. There also it will happen. So in this whole situation, we think where do I try to take it to? Look, the world is facing for last 30, 40 years, world is facing a situation of recession. And the world capitalism is in crisis, and they are trying to use different wars, conflicts, area, controlled way or little advanced way, or intervening to different countries, or trying to change the regimes forcibly, or arresting a elected representative, as it happened with Maduro in Venezuela. How come a country has a right to decide who will rule in a particular country? No, in my country, India, why I will allow, even though I have hundreds of grievances against my present government here in my country, but will I allow it somebody else coming and telling that we are picking up your prime minister and taking away, or we are attacking your parliament or the offices and we will kill your leadership? You choose a leader of your choice. So this is what is lawlessness which is happening. It has totally made the UN system defunct. Mr. Trump had already wound up WHO. It had not respected any UN resolutions. All international UN treaties are put on stake. And having learned a lot about history, I remember after First World War, League of Nations was founded, and how the League of Nations just simply vanished away when the Second World War began. And post Second World War, we had UN system, international laws, international treaties, security system, all that was there. And for some time, those were having, even though we know that Security Council has large numbers, but those at the top 7 or 10, they have been vetoing each other. But still that system was there, where you are going, you are getting justice or not, but you were able to put the things and to have the opinions of nation. But now the UN system itself is put into jeopardy. So in this whole situation, when world capitalism is in danger, then it is not capitalism versus global south only. Within the capitalist world, there are contradictions. International corporates are also fighting with each other. International finance capital is also putting their eggs in different baskets. And you saw it how after picking up Maduro and his wife, Venezuelan president and his wife, how he said now Mexico, Brazil, or Cuba, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I mean, even he said Canada will be 51st state of United States of America. So Canada had to retaliate. So
He
this
forgot
was
Greenland, and also Greenland. No?
no, it was after that. First, he named all these things, and then there were reactions from these countries that we will not let it happen. Then he found that even European nations, the unity which stands by United States of America, especially on this Russia-Ukraine conflict, it is a proxy war. Ukraine's Zelensky is being supported by NATO forces, and America is behind it. It is also known. So you can't justify attack by Putin, but you have to understand how they were trying to control them and surround them. And Ukraine's leadership is backed by NATO and United States of America. So European Union, how to have them with us? with him. That is what he was thinking. And
But
then
see,
he
in the
came back
European
to that.
Union, 40% representation is that of women parliamentarians.
Yes,
What is
yes,
their representation, voice, and weightage in the
yeah,
decision making? No, that
yeah.
is a very important question
Very
we need to.
important question. So he picked up issue of Greenland. Now the head of Canada, this Denmark is a woman. You just asked about women. She is a woman. And we found even in Latin American continent, women reacted strongly, those who
Yes.
were in leadership. So this woman took a position and she said nothing doing. And she mobilized some of the powers within Europe. And once he mobilized and one or two countries came out in her support, then Trump changed his language. And then he said that, oh, we have settled this thing, that thing. So that Greenland question came after that. And that was within Europe, he understood who is standing with whom. So there is no unity even within European nations. Now in this war also, some of the European countries are taking a silent position, whereas others have come openly. Those who stood with United States of America in the previous attack on Iran, some of them are not there. Those who stood with America while attack was there on Iraq, some of them are not there. That is
Syria.
there. Now, as regards women politicians over there is a mixed opinion I will give you. Those who are with the right thinking policy of authoritarian fascist thought, they are men or women, they are taking a different position. They stand with Trump. Those who have liberal opinions, men or women, they are having a different opinion. This is what we saw. This is how the Denmark president acted on it, and that is what what the things will further unravel when we further. Now, in this background, it is very important that with our agenda, because with every this kind of aggressive steps, the aftermath of this, the whole burden comes on women and children, whole burden for rebuilding themselves. And if the governments and the governance is not there to take care of all citizens, then it becomes much more difficult. And in this background, unfortunately, I must say that our country, which has anti-imperialist legacy, we have always stood for world peace. We have been leader of a non-aligned movement also for some time. But our government's approach, we disapprove. They did not take a proactive approach asking for peace. Rather, the questions had to be raised. Why just war began 2 days before our prime minister was there? These questions were raised. What
But
happened? What?
Comrade Amarjeet, I just want to ask that if you see any media our last 15 days, all of them are only focusing on trade relations. What will
Yeah,
happen to India's trade? No, human
yeah,
miseries, this many children being dying. None of the journalists are also writing about it. You read Economic Times, you read Times of India. Each one is obsessed about what India is going to gain or lose in terms of trade. No, what do
yes.
you think that where have we reached?
Yeah. So, yes, of course, role of media, all of us understand. Only social media is reflecting a little bit what opposition is coming. But the mainstream media, which is called as that so-called mainstream media, is not taking it up. And this very much depends on the government also is sidelining the thing. And so there are directions to the media also, because if they will discuss on this thing, exposure of government's stand will also come, that debate will also emerge. So it has not only that there are insensitive people who will not like to discuss, but in the mainstream media, only those things are discussed which the governance wants them to discuss. And as far as trade is concerned, of course it is a big issue for workers and farmers, whose whole agriculture will be put on stake because of that trade deal and all. But then the question is, if this is the face of the country and their government which is imposing this trade on us, then what do you expect? first thing should be to tame that country's approach. That should have been the major discussion in the media. But I'm telling you, media did not pick it up, because then government will have to answer many questions, which they are not ready to. And it was so much painful that those who came to participate in exercise here, they were naval ship in our Indian Ocean. The name is Indian Ocean. India has stake over there. We have always been claiming that Indian Ocean will always remain a peace place. This has been our approach throughout all these 50 years, more than 50 years. This is what from our school days to university days we have been hearing and campaigning about. But then all that has happened. Even today, the things are not that clear. Here and there, some statements are coming. And worst part was, head of a government is killed brutally, and there was no condemnation of that. So I don't expect much from the media. I will rather expect the grassroots activities of the mass organizations, women organizations, trade unions, Kisan Morchas. We from trade unions gave a call yesterday, 10th March, to be observed as Anti-Imperialist Day for world peace. And this aggression should end on Iran. There should be negotiations and talk. That all we will be doing. And Kisan Morcha also gave a call on 10th. They will also be observing all over India. So now we should gear up our situation, because we do not know how many days this war will take place. Aftermath of war will also be very painful. And then if this particular war doesn't end, there is no guarantee that it will not emanate somewhere else. So it is very, very necessary that this issue becomes a very much issue of rights, justice, and actions. It's not only dealing with gender; it is for with all human beings. So sometimes our questions are part of whole human race and all human rights, and then within those human rights, asserting that women have human rights, so they have equal rights. So you can't have gender discrimination. This is how
Without liberation of humankind, you can't have women's liberation, and vice versa. So I think you have given a very important overarching perspective. I'll come to you later. Now I would like to, and you have rightly said that so much of war jingoism that is being created. And I think Mahmoud Darwish, Palestinian poet, rightly said that the war will end, the leaders will shake hands, and old lady will still wait for her martyred son. That woman will wait for her beloved husband, and those children will wait for their heroic father. I don't know who sold the homeland, but I know who paid the price. So I think this is a reality. And also Margaret Atwood, feminist author, she also says that war is what happens when language fails. And here now I would like to ask Vahida that what has been the role of Women, Peace and Security Initiative, and which the UN slogan, which is basically focusing on give to gain, which emphasizes powerful impact of collective action, mentorship, resource sharing to accelerate gender equality. Now, this campaign also highlights investing time, knowledge, and support to women, which creates ripple effect of progress leading to more equitable and inclusive society. So how do you evaluate this vision which the UN Women has put forward for today in the contemporary global context and also our Indian context?
Thank you, Vibhuti. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes. So thank you very much. I appreciate the opportunity as usual to participate in this panel discussion. And I thank you, Vibhuti and IMPRI, for having me on this panel. So the slogan for this year's International Women's Day, Give to Gain. You know, in summary, this it is kind of shifting from a moral plea to a strategic imperative by saying the slogan "Give to Gain." It's highly relevant because it reframes gender equality not as charity but as investment with tangible returns for society. So in that aspect, I was thinking of this slogan, Vibhuti, when you mentioned that the reportage of this war in our country is mainly focusing on the impact to the economy and the impact to trade and commerce and all only in relation to finances and money and trade and all that. So in that sense, this slogan sits with what this world considers important at this point in time, which is basically, I would imagine, economy and trade and finances and money. And this slogan is also coined in those terms. It's a kind of a transactional slogan. You give and you gain. And so you invest and you get your return. And so that's, fitting fitting the current times. I'm not sure. I mean, it does have has its positive aspects to it. If you break it down, there are four um, uh, key dimensions to it. One is, of course, as I mentioned just now, the economic argument. So moving from charity to investment and the returns you get on investment. It kind of talks about, has an aspect of a multiplier effect, shows that women basically, and it has been the experience, women reinvest a higher portion of their earnings into their families, communities as compared to men. So that multiplier effect is all that. And the slogans try to capitalize on that particular and that potential, that experience, that data that exists, that women reinvest and women give. And there is a lot more to gain from investment in women. And the other aspect is the mentorship versus the sponsorship in this entire digital age. Excuse me. So here it's talking about it's advocating at that if for someone when they aren't in the room, which means that uh, uh, the current context with the digital age is that remote work becomes the norm. Visibility for women has decreased, making intentional resource sharing pretty vital. So here also, the idea is that you have to bridge the technical gap. Resource sharing is perhaps most critical regarding the digital divide, is because we know in this entire digital age, there is a massive gender gap in the digital and access to digital resources. So, and in this new, impetus on AI, the importance that it is gaining and that it will gain in future, if there is no investment on technical literacy to women, what the AI is being trained now is in the biased of knowledge, in that the knowledge that is existing is biased, and it is on this biased knowledge that AI systems are being trained. So what you get out of it will also leave out half of the world's population, and that is a big danger. So that so that is, the nutshell in terms of the give to gain campaign, focus. But of course, there are aspects to it. It is definitely not new. I mean, women have been giving for ages, often without gaining anything in return. But the giving aspect is certainly there. And particularly women have definitely been, and movements around the world, also in India, which have been, how do we call it, all the campaigns, the work that the movement have been doing over here in India also is partly, talking about how to take these movements forward, with the kind of work that women have been doing, grassroots mobilization and training. turns this campaign into practical skill building, digital literacy, financial inclusion, entrepreneurship, legal literacy, leadership workshops. All these are all models and ways of giving and creating the next generation, or sharing one's existing resources with the others. Then many of groups are peer mentoring circles, saving groups, training for elected women, and so on. All these programs also participate or take the shape of mentorship and within peer networks also. Women's organizations here as well as around the world have been part of policy advocacy groups and putting pressure on institutions for rights, for justice, and taking various actions to implement those ideas. So and there is also at the same time to proliferate, to expand the base of these ideas of giving is also the coalition building. Coalition building not only amongst various women's groups and their respective interests, but also an intersectional outreach. So feminists, expanding the campaign beyond urban areas to include women rural areas and women having their own campaigns within marginalized groups. Uh, and all these involves also partnering with so-called women from other communities, other interest groups. So all these aspects, are happening. Even in India, there is a push on these programs. So what has been captured as a slogan is coming from the experiences of women's movements around the world, but also over here in India. But also there is, the problem that when one gives such a slogan, it becomes a one-off slogan rather than a sustained action. When you're saying giving, are we putting more burden on women to who are already exhausted giving to give more, whereas those who are not and historically have never are watching from the sidelines? How is this giving going to be to have a impact greater than what is already, to kind of amplify the impact without any institutional support from the state, support from international organizations, support from, support in the form of resources. These are all empty slogans without a push of resources that go into trying to get the impact that.
As it is, the system has already extracted all unpaid care work from women. So that is also not even
Exactly.
acknowledgement. On the top of it, you are asking them to give, no?
Give more. So that is a huge thing. Are you putting more burden? Are you saying that the responsibility of gender equality is only on women? Are you, amplifying that notion that feminist movement have fought off to say it is not only that? And are you, and you're going to keep putting that burden without adding any resources to it, and then turn around and say, well, then gender equality is not being achieved because women are not participating in giving. And also how realistic that is, in the current context where there is lack of emphasis on institutional accountability, and that um, the campaign for collective, it overlooks the historical and ongoing tensions such as competition for scarce resources and differing feminist perspectives, which can kind of perhaps has a potential to obstruct solidarity between women. It assumes that women will all naturally collaborate, ignoring how scarcity mindsets often foster competition. And how does one work with this when there is no commitment of allocation of resources from any institutions, whether it is at the state level or international level, Because as you know, Vibhuti, and I'm sure the other panelists, the funds available, the resources available for work on gender equality has dramatically reduced over the years.
In
And
the
it is
national
only
budget as well as globally.
budgets have reduced, internationally, nationally. So if you don't put your money where your mouth is, these slogans remain slogans. They are more performative rather than transformational. So that is, definitely there. And in terms of where the world is today, Madam Kaur, gave us a idea of where it is. None of the governments and states are really talking about the human impact of what is going on in the world. As you mentioned, Vibhuti, why are we always talking in terms of what kind of impact is going to happen on trade? Why is nobody talking about the accountability
Human
for,
miseries.
for the bombing of girls' school? Why are nobody talking about the, as if human rights as an issue doesn't matter anymore? As if justice and accountability doesn't matter. Everybody if you look at news, if you look at the way it is reported, as if they have all taken it for granted that international law is dead. And there is no international law. We kind of operating in vacuum. Everybody is taking this for granted, is as the status. So, even those who are condemning the war, nobody is calling for justice and accountability. So in that context, the real fear is that women and women's thing of rights, the agenda will also not matter. The whole emphasis for women's rights and putting it out there on the global front came as a result of international law, establishment of the international law order, the United Nations, the various conventions, the various, how do you call it, declarations that have come from offshoot of that, the International Year of Women from Nairobi. That push has come from that. And if that order collapses, I'm afraid, the entire work that the movements have done so far, the gains that have been achieved so far, is at a huge risk of being kind of lost, making it all the more difficult for the coming generations to kind of hold on to it. I mean, we already see it in our respective context. You may be knowing now the women's participation in workforce, labor participation has been decreasing, with emphasis on digital age again, and the technical gap, gender gap in the digital world, that is going to even more, impact what women can access is in terms of livelihood. Safety and security or around the world is a problem. We know from statistics that is an issue over here, but also with conflicts going on around the world, there is no safety security. So we are in a very, very critical stage of the world in terms of, human rights, in terms of the threat or the undermining of international law. And therefore, its logical conclusion is there will be an undermining of all other rights as well, not definitely women's rights, gender, because there will be, if it is not important, then who is there to hold the states accountable or the societies accountable? Because those in power and authority themselves consider it is not important anymore. So gender rights will be undermined, the labor rights would be undermined the rights of kind of all the minorities, the ethnic rights, the indigenous rights, all of it, the environment rights, all of it is under threat when the international law and order is undermined. So I think I'll kind of
Thank
conclude
you.
there.
Yeah, thank you, Dr. Vahida Nainar, for complimenting what Comrade Amarjeet Kaur said. And now I come to Ms. Cynthia Stephen. I think because of the whole obsession, currently all our focus is on the global challenges. I think so many internal contradictions that our society is facing, and out of that, the intersectional marginalities, vulnerabilities of the communities who are facing multiple marginalities. I think, how do you see from the intersectional perspective, womanist perspective, the current scenario and the challenges that we are facing? And what is your vision of more equitable, inclusive world, which UN Women has said that we all need to strive for?
Uh, uh, Thank you so much for this opportunity, Professor VIBHUTI and IMPRI. I really value this because, as you all know, that I have been a keen student of women's rights, keen advocate of women's studies, and a keen advocate of women's rights, particularly the women's rights of the rights of the marginalized women, of which there are hundreds of millions in India. But I thought I'll just start, since you've already mentioned, I thought I'll start with a kind of an overview and a quick sweep of the trajectory of women's rights and human rights. So as we know, the UDHR in 1948 was declared, and 2 Indian women had a role to play in its composition. You see the very term that it is human rights and not men's rights, it was because of someone known as Hansa Mehta, who said she was able to persuade the team there to use the word human beings rather than men. And then also in the text of the UDHR, and it says, and the statement, all human beings are born free and equal, instead of all men are born free and equal, which was a proposed draft. Then there was another lady, Lakshmi Menon, who contributed and said two concepts: non-discrimination based on sex and equal rights of men and women. So that was where in the 1940s, Indian women were already speaking on the international sphere on these issues. But I think it's also important, since you asked me to talk on the intersection feminism, and it behooves us to look at the history of women from the marginalized sections who have worked for women's rights, and also look briefly at how the international existing international rights frameworks, what is the situation right now. So in fact, as you know, I was part of the UN World Conference on Women, the mobilization towards the Beijing conference in '95. But just before that, there was the UN Conference on Human Rights in Vienna in 1993. And there was a slogan that came out: women's rights are human rights. That had to come out because it came out because of the Women's Caucus in the Human Rights Conference, which brought out this strong, again, the voice of women had to be heard to bring out this slogan. Now, this slogan was made into a sticker and was stuck on one of the cupboards in the office in the coordination unit for women. And I remembered one of the organization, the institution where we had a temporary office, where one of the gentlemen in charge walked in and he read that statement aloud: women's rights are human rights. Who said so? So men who still questioned that women had rights and that they are also human and that they have human rights was something that surprised this gentleman in the mid 90s. So that is the situation that we are facing and continue to face, despite the luminous histories of leaders like Savitribai Phule, for instance, who with her husband was and with her co-trainer and teacher Fatima Sheikh, co-founded the first school in India for girls run by Indians. As you know, there were schools in India for girls, but those were usually run by the elite sections for their daughters and were not accessible for the people of the common, for the common people and from the local communities. That was started in 1848. Then she started the Mahila Seva Mandal in 1850. One of the so she in that sense she was a pioneer of women's organizing in India to educate women and combat widow head shaving. She organized a strike by barbers to combat widow head shaving. And then, of course, she and her husband were fiercely opposed to child marriage, sati and such like. And they also started, between them, they started the Balhatya Pratibandhit Griha in 1863 to prevent infanticide, the killings or the deaths or the suicides of women who were, found to be, quote unquote, bearing illegitimate children. Usually they were widows, child widows or young widows left in their in their marital homes as widows, and then the men in the family, joint families, used to exploit them, and later on they were blamed, and so often the babies used to be killed, and the women also used to commit suicide. So to prevent that, the Pule couple organized this program of giving a shelter to these people. Then they also started shelters for destitute men and women and orphans. Then she co-founded the Satya Shodhak Samaj with her husband in 1973. And later, upon his death, several years later, she led the women's wing, and later she became the first woman to head this kind of a body. The Satya Shodhak Samaj was a kind of a policy think tank, actually, plus also did a lot of activities. And another interesting thing is that they also promoted intercaste marriages, and she organized the first community marriage ceremony without any religious priest. So this was an equalitarian marriage where the husband and the bride and the groom took vows in the front of the community and promised to love and respect each other and so on. So in many ways, a path breaker, a pioneer. And people may find it shocking, and they may not remember or know that in fact she was probably the first woman ever to set the pyre of her husband, to light the pyre of her husband, because there was some dispute about who would be lighting the pyre. Finally, she took the initiative and lit his fire. So this is something revolutionary even in these days. Though it is now here and there happening, but 200 years ago, we saw that she's doing this. So she was in every sense a revolutionary leader from the marginalized sections. Pandita Ramabai, though she belonged to a privileged, she was born into a privileged community, the Brahmin community. She was soon, the family was outcasted because her father taught her Sanskrit. As you know, Sanskrit was not to be taught to women. And so because he insisted on teaching her mother and her Sanskrit, they were outcasted and had to live in a forest. Later on, the family used to make a living by traveling all over the countryside, holding Harikatha type, discourses on spiritual matters. And eventually, she and her brother found themselves in Calcutta without their parents, because the parents had died, during their journeys. And there in Calcutta, they were stunned to see this woman so well versed in scriptures and speaking beautifully. And so she was accorded the title Pandita Ramabai Saraswati, the title, by the scholars in Calcutta. And she also contracted an intercaste marriage, had a daughter, then was widowed, and then returned home in 1889 and started the Sharda Sadan, a refuge for high caste widows. She had a tremendous writing career. She used to raise a lot of funds by writing writing on the situation of Indian women. And as many would know, she also eventually converted to Christianity. And so she faced fierce opposition despite her a track record of service in society. And she founded also the Mukti Mission near Pune, 1889. And it still runs, and it is a self-sustaining community where all the women did all the work. They had printing works, they published material, they did all their construction, they grew fruits, they grew their own grains, food grains, and so on. So it became a self-sustaining female-headed community, a kind of something that is even to this day quite difficult to imagine. And actually that institution still survives. That is a startling legacy that Pandita Ramabai has left, apart from her very, very important writings. And she also, many may not know, she knew many languages, and she studied biblical Greek and Hebrew and translated the Christian scriptures into accessible Marathi language, because the Marathi language was highly Sanskritized and not accessible to the common people. So this was the kind of work that she was able to do. And also we cannot forget the life of Ramabai Ambedkar, the wife of Ambedkar, Baba Saheb Ambedkar, and who managed the family home, giving him the capacity to go away and take his doctoral degrees in law and, all the work that he did, and economics. And she struggled to manage the home in dire poverty, to the extent that they used to gather firewood and collect cow dung to survive with her child, because the money was so short. But she never allowed her devotion to her husband and her support to her husband to flag. And later on, we found that she also had, offered her jewelry at various times to the movement, and also was part of the team in the Mahad Satyagraha. So she was a complete. She worked just as Savitribai Phule and Jyotirao Phule worked together, shoulder to shoulder. So did Ramabai Ambedkar, given her own constraints. Because despite his efforts, Ramabai refused to take lessons and become literate. She said, if you're not, she was totally disinterested in literacy. She said, see, if I can't read, I won't read. If that's a problem, please take an educated wife. So she stood firm on that. It's an interesting and amusing sidelight.
Ms. Cynthia, also tell about your organization's work, All India Dalit Women's Rights work, which is happening currently at a global level and at a national level. The campaign which your organization,
Yeah, we are very, very much inspired, not only by Ramabai and the past, but we also have, in the present day, we have so many Dalit women who are leading movements. Of course, the most prominent one is our dear Dr. Ruth Manorama, who registered the National Federation of Dalit Women in just before we left to Beijing in 1995, and she has continued to lead the pack in terms of leadership. We have Kumut Pavade, Urmila Pawar, then Martha Gladstone, who is no more, sadly. We lost her many years ago. And then we have Leela Kumari, a lawyer and very serious activist from Guttur, and also Radhika Vemula. So these are all women who continue to inspire me in my own work, because I have a slightly different trajectory. Everybody are activists, but I have not done much writing. In my case, I have done a fair amount of writing and also theoretical work. And my theoretical work involves the kind of gap that has taken place in the Indian women's movement, the kind of ideological, invisibility that has taken place in case of the agenda of the Dalit women. So we do have Dalit women's literature, we have Dalit women's organizing and mobilizing, but those matters have not been taken on board within the literatures, except as subjects for study, but have not become the mainstream, have not joined the mainstream, except in very recent years. Young Dalit scholars have come in. And so I have critiqued actually this kind of sort of opacity of the traditional feminist movements and Dalit studies, women's studies scholars to the situation of Dalit women's realities and lives. And so we have also coined a new term, which I call womenism, to distinguish their life experience, the content of their theorizing, if you like, or praxis, you can say, which is different from what the mainstream Indian women's movement have done. So, so we've called that marginalized Indian womanism. And we distinguish womanism and feminism in India, that is. As we know, India is a unique society and has many differences. For instance, the idea of secularism that we practice or understand in India is very different from the way secularism is understood in the West. Such as they say the separation of church and state. Here we talk about equal respect to all religions. We accept the reality of religion and we say equal respect to all religions, and that we see as the secularist values of our Indian society. Similarly, we feel that the kind of feminist theorizing that has happened in India has not sufficiently taken into account the realities of women's lives here, and particularly those of the marginalized section. And so we insist that we will not be no more put under the microscope. We will start looking at and critiquing what the mainstream academia and activism also within these movements are doing in terms of organizing and writing on the subject. And so now, as we are slowly having more and more women who are publishing, writing, Dalits, Adivasis, and nomadic tribes, all these youngsters are now coming in and their voices are being heard. So we hope that there will be an enriching and the intersectional feminisms that we will see in India will enrich the overall understanding and enable us as a society to be more democratic, inclusive, and more responsive in policy work, in policy manner, in the manner of policy funding, and also in the content of knowledge building. I think that's very important. Knowledge building has only taken place from one side, and the knowledge and experiences of the marginalized sections have not been taken on board in the mainstream academia. And therefore, we insist that without the content of the work, the intellectual work and labor that the women, the praxis of the working women, the working class women, the excluded and the marginalized sections, without the content of their practice, their praxis, women's studies, feminism, sociology, it is only partial. It is not complete, and so we insist on this as a necessary response. I would say that is what I'm calling for in terms of action. You talk about rights and action as the point. So my ask for the society, for scholars, students, young people, is to become more aware of the deep impact of patriarchy and caste on society, the differential impact, and how, and if, for instance, I mean, even the women's organizing that we saw in the 70s, 80s, we have very many prominent women who were scholars, academicians, sociologists, journalists, and all that, who were active, but they would not have been able to do their work if some other woman had not taken up their gender roles in their homes. Somebody was cooking, looking after their children. Either it was a mother or an aunt or a grandmother or a sister, or it could have been a working class woman who was a domestic worker, who was cooking and cleaning and looking after her children while she was organizing on the streets. she got the women who are middle class and above, they got some responses from the governments, but the working class women still haven't got. For instance, neither Mathura nor Bhavri Devi ever got any real relief for their situations, but their cases have provided the basis for legal reforms, which has impacted all our lives across society. So I think this is the important thing, that that the society has tended to elide the role that the marginalized women continue to play, and have given more visibility and voice to the middle classes. And that, I feel, that is definitely my call, is that now we cannot afford to do this anymore. And I want to link that with what the previous speaker was talking about. And in fact, what I started speaking about also, because I've been closely involved in the international levels of UN level mobilizing of women, and the making of policy and calling for covenants and things like that. Right now we are at a juncture where that international human rights framework seems to be getting lost completely. The UN system is disintegrating, and the rule of law is beginning to sound like a hollow thing. And at a massive scale, there is there's a loss of that kind of cohesion in policy and international relationships. And wars are being declared, sitting heads of state, countries are being invaded, and sitting heads of states have been moved out without sanction from the Congress, from their own, from American Congress. People are just acting like tin pot dictators, but at a global level. So, in such a context, how much more we need the voices of the marginalized who are affected without having in any way contributed to the level and scale of this kind of, disintegration of, the international order, the rule of law, the UN system, the Committee of Nations. All these have been thoroughly weakened, and it's become free for all at the global level.
It is right.
And might is right has become the way. How are we going to reclaim the rule of law, and the possibility of justice for the masses, in a context where there is mass impoverishment, there is huge destruction, at a global scale. So we are at very, very critical juncture in human history. And I think the call is for everyone to take up the cross, if you like, and follow, do what has to be done to stand up for justice for each other, without which, if we don't have solidarity, if we continue to look at and work with these ancient hierarchies, there's no hope. But there is hope if, we have heard the slogan, workers of the world unite, you have nothing to lose but your chains. Here I'm saying, people of the world, women of the world, young people of the world unite, we have nothing to lose but our chains. Because very soon we are going to be in chains if we don't watch out. And this is my call.
No, very good. Extremely perfect perspective and intersectional perspective. Now we would like to move to Dr. Prateeti Barman. Another neglected area, northeastern states have always been left out by the mainstream discourses. And there are so many things, reverberations, and a lot of churning is happening, even among the Seven Sisters. And here we have a representative from Assam, Dr. Prateeti Barman. I would like to ask you that what are the gender equality concerns in the contemporary world in northeastern states? And how, as women's movement and women's studies, and also you have a strong queer movement also. So how are they responding to the current challenges? Over to Dr. Prateeti Barman. Yeah.
Yeah, thank you, ma'am. I have just prepared a short PPT I would like to share. Is it visible to all?
Yes, it is in working mode. You can make it slideshow mode.
Yes, sure. Okay. Good afternoon, all. So I'm really thankful to Professor VIBHUTI ma'am and IMPRI team for calling me for this interaction. And my esteemed panelists have already covered all the major areas, and this is my turn to bring your focus on Northeast India. So when we talk about Northeast India or Northeastern region, it basically considered one of the very ethnically and linguistically diverse regions in Asia. We are having about 8 states, 7 sisters, and one brother. That's the Sikkim, who got attached to us recently. And each one of us have got different linguistic backgrounds, and we have different culture altogether. Yet somehow we are bonded together as well. So when I'm talking about on the whole context of this uh, International Women's Day's concept of give to gain, and when we are talking in the context of Northeast region, and this region is something which serves as a crucial gateway to Southeast Asia and holds a significant strategic importance, as each of these states share an international border with at least one of the India's eastern neighboring countries. We are rich in vast, but yet largely untapped natural resources are there when it comes to Northeast region. And it also recently getting lot of recognition because of the Act East policy by the central government. This region is also known for, at the same time, we are also known for various ethnic conflicts and violences erupting over the years after independence. And with this kind of background and context, we need to understand where we are going. We must first understand where we stand today. So, in reality, our region can be described what I will call the paradox of progress, because in terms of high social status, we have various structural barriers. In terms, if we look into this data, the NER seems to be winning the race of gender equality. We are extremely gender equal society. According to the 2025 NITI Aayog reports, a staggering 85% of districts in this region are classified as the as the front runners in terms of gender equality. And in states like Mizoram, Sikkim, women are not just participating in developmental activities, they are actually leading in terms of when it comes to literacy rates and health indicators. Similarly, in rural Assam, the female workforce participation rate is around 53% altogether, which is significantly higher than the national average, which is really a good sign in the context of SGD. But here comes the paradox. While we are having this kind of things, women in Northeast we are possessing immense social power. We have a lot of equality in this context, but at the same time, we lack structural power, and structural power in terms of our representation in the formal places, in terms of ownership of land, is all still very low when it comes to in social reality. And if you look into the women run local markets, you will see in Imphal that Nupi Kethal, where it's totally run by women, the whole market is run by women. Their earning is good, they are managing their household finances. At the same time, they are managing the culture and social life, but in having all this, there is lack of legal rights when it comes to the tribal society. Specifically, if you look into the northeastern states, we are a tribal dominated society, and here the tribal communities, we do still have certain customary laws which is still act as a glass ceiling. And women representation specifically, if we look into Meghalaya is a matrilineal society, but still in the local darbar or the local level, village level council, you will not see any women representation in those darbars. It is a male dominated society or male dominated darbar or council where all the decisions are taken by men. And though it is a matrilineal society, again, the brother of the youngest daughter in the family takes the decision when it comes to the all property and other aspects. So in paper, in culture, in social aspect, it looks quite perfect where women are given equal or shown as equal partners in development. But in reality, very rarely, these women get to play the role of decision maker or taking decisions in these matters. So these women, where if you're talking about uh, the whole concept of give to gain, here we need to, it need not give women anything at this moment, but already they have it, but somewhere the structural barriers are there which is not allowing them to access those rights in terms of their land rights, in terms of their political representation, in terms of their legal recognition. And in this context, if we look, there are also certain good news coming in terms of, here I have given some examples of how poverty is still there, how women representation in the public sector is still very low in the context of Assam as well. And when it comes to the uh, in terms of places like Nagaland, where again the customary laws played a very, very crucial role. And again, Nagaland is another very conflict-ridden state, though women were subjugated to various conflict related violences happening towards them. Somewhere again they were playing a secondary role and they were not getting enough uh, political representation. So it came in the year 2024, where ULB election happened and 33% women got, the elected, reservation was there. So this is something good which has happened in a state like Nagaland. But again, the question comes here because we still have certain challenges like the intersectionality of class. Because it's a tribal society, we do not have caste system, but we have the whole concept of class. So who are the women in this representation? Then comes to the people who are again in places like Manipur, where ethnic conflict is happening. And in that conflict, again, the women bodies are again becoming the place where violation is happening. In fact, the whole country got to see when two Kuki women were being stripped and paraded by the mobs in 2023. Same happened in Assam context also, where when one tea garden girl got stripped in Guwahati, in the Guwahati city and in Assam and heart of northeast India. So there are still these things are there. At the same time, certain good things are also happening. So when we look into the whole context of how do we look in future and how do we go about it, we still have certain areas where we are still fighting, though in paper we look good, where gender equality is showing, but in reality we are still fighting certain aspects which are not seen commonly, but it is underneath and we face it on a day-to-day life. And here I feel in the context of, because again Northeast, I am when it comes to the economic aspect of Northeast women, there in Northeast you will see that every state has got their women being skilled in terms of certain weaving skills are there. So each rural women is equipped with that skill. And somewhere I feel this mentorship is very, very important, and certain mentorship is happening and by some grassroots organizations, and where mm, they are being trained, so that digitally also some of them are coming in terms of selling their weaving crafts, handicrafts. And some organizations like Hub Jorhat, which is run by Bosco Institute, they are also, bringing these women in terms of, selling their traditional craft in the global market. So these are certain things which are happening. Then organizations like NEN, which are again providing Northeast Network, that is NEN in short, providing uh, support to women in various pockets of Nagaland. And here I have given one example of the Sizami Resource Center in Nagaland, where women are keeping the millets. They are keeping the community seed bank and keeping around 7 types of millet seed banks here, and they are providing these seeds to the people in the village, because these areas are hilly areas and where jhum cultivation happens. And jhum cultivation is something which is a collective action, where they clear out certain part of land and they will do collective cultivation. And they are also keeping these seeds intact, which is centuries old, which is not available in the market. So these kind of work is going on, where certain grassroots organizations are working, but at the same time certain structural aspects are still there, where the Northeast region women are still facing. And this is where I feel, being women studies researcher and being involved with various activities, I feel somewhere the land rights are still not accessible to these women. We are still fighting for it, whether it is the tribal women or it is the other caste women. Still, it is a big aspect for us, where we are not getting any right to hold lands. Still, the brothers and the fathers have this right. Then I feel digital tool is very important. It is not a luxury in terms of Northeast women. It will be a bridge in terms of bringing their traditional crafts and weaves to the global market, and in political representation in the real sense, because the political parties are still not giving tickets to the women candidates. Still, it is dominated by men, and they do not prefer the, yes, grassroots workers are women who are creating awareness and campaigning, and all these things are happening. But when it comes to the political representation, they are still not willing to give tickets to these women to represent the various political parties in the local bodies, in the Panchayati Raj institution, even in the urban areas, or even in the state level. So this is where I will end. And uh, I feel the scenario is same in Indian context, in the global context, when it comes to the women's bodies, when it comes to her health rights, when it comes to her access to education, because we still have a high number of girl children dropping out in Northeast region.
That's true.
So with this,
And
I will
also, there
end
are some
my-
states which have not even implemented Panchayati Raj Act. So even women in the
Yes,
local
ma'am.
self-government bodies are also not there. And those
Not
who
represented.
muster up
Yes.
courage, they are also, there is witch hunting happening. So
Yeah,
this is a
witch
very
hunting is
major
happening
challenge.
in
Yeah.
Assam also. It's a major
Correct.
problem.
Yeah. Thank you for giving such an important perspective of 8 states. I think you had a very challenging task. And now we come to another challenging task to Dr. Gole, because she has to now connect all the issues, global, national, subnational, local, and provide the view of last 50 years, because this is the year women's rights movement in India has been commemorating Golden Jubilee of action and also the 30 years of Beijing Plus Action Agenda with 12 points. They were also being reviewed last year. So over to Dr. Sneha Gole. Yeah.
Thank you, Vibhuti Ben, and IMPRI team for having me in this very rich panel discussion. And I mean, we are almost at time, and I have a very challenging task ahead of me. So, what I'm going to do, I will not take too much time, but I think what I'll try and do is give a very sort of brief overview of what has been the Indian women's rights, feminist movements, major sort of achievements, and how does it link up to this year's theme of Give to Gain. I think beginning off from what Comrade Kaur was saying, I think something, and when I was also thinking about 8th March in this context, I think something that we need to all think about is the way in which the language of women's rights has also come to be joined into imperialist agendas. So, Comrade Kaur talked about this history of, I mean, before we come to what's happening to Iran, this history of what has happened to Afghanistan, what has happened in Iraq. And consistently, we see the language of American imperialism has been quoted in the language of women's rights, right? So, Afghanistan had to be attacked in the name of rescuing the Afghan women from Taliban. And now, again, in the case of Iran, we are constantly seeing this sort of an invocation of the need to rescue the Iranian woman from her veil and therefore from her, so to say, her, Islamic fundamentalist leaders, and celebrating, therefore, the murder of Khamenei. And I mean, I don't want to go into the pros and cons of Khamenei's rule, but the fact that, this sort of a celebration of the killing of the leader of a sovereign state is being done in the name of quote unquote freeing, as if, Iranian women. And I think in that context, what, many decades ago, women of RAWA, of the Revolutionary Association of the Women of Afghanistan, said, where they said that the freedom of a nation is to be achieved by itself. Similarly, the real emancipation of women can only be realized only by themselves. So, if we are talking about, and this is, I think, a major sort of context for this conflict, where the bestowing, so to say, of freedoms the bestowing of freedoms on women is being, is the sort of umbrella that we are using to further what are clearly white supremacist, imperialist, patriarchal agendas. I think that is the context in which we need to think about 8th of March of this year. Having said that, I think this idea of give to gain, and again, I echo in many ways what all the three speakers, Comrade Kaur, Cynthia ma'am, and Vahida ma'am were saying, that it's an important slogan, but it's also a slogan that in many ways co-opts and puts on its head what women's movements across the world have been doing. So the idea of give to gain has been central in some ways to women's rights movements everywhere in India, but it's not so much about giving as much as it has been about creating and co-creating. And I think in some ways what this slogan very cleverly does, and one understands, why it sort of tries to, seeks to create this idea of investing in women as profitable in a neoliberal sort of context. But what it's also very cleverly doing in that sense is that it is undermining in many ways the feminist wisdom of co-creation, of solidarity, and also the fact that we should invest in women because they are human beings, rather than, sort of connect it up in a very instrumental sort of way to this idea that if you invest in women, you gain. And I am reminded, therefore, of this very interesting work that feminists have done about the creation of gender myths and feminist fables, where very, very insightful sort of, feminist insights are actually co-opted by by the forces that are to make them into these very pithy axiomatic slogans which seem to have this kind of a truth value to themselves. And I think in some ways, whereas this idea of give to gain is very catchy, and this whole you do the symbol and do the whatever has a lot of performative value, I think we also need to be slightly critical of what it is trying to do. Uh, Having said that, what is the wisdom then of women's rights movements that it is building on? It is building on, therefore, this idea of giving solidarity, resources, funds, space, opportunities, which has actually been central to the movement, and right from, if you look at an experiment like the Women's Center, of which Vibhuti Ben was a part, the idea of creating. And so I'm saying that it's not about giving as much as it was about creating and co-creating. And creating and co-creating space, therefore, has been central in that sense. If you look at this whole history of the last 50 years, at least, if not more, though, we would like to actually go back to the history right from, Savitribai and her student Mukta. And I think that space, right, that space of opening up a critical eye to the world, which allows then a young student, a 13-year-old Mukta Save, who is a student in Savitribai's school, to be able to write a scathing essay that looks at the world around her with this critical eye. And I think that is really the power of the creation of feminist spaces. And so every campaign, every sort of thing that the movement has done has therefore been about giving respect and visibility and voice. And in fact, I mean, something that Cynthia ma'am was talking about, but I think in some ways we also need to acknowledge, therefore, that the women's movement has probably also been the only movement in which we have had some very tough conversations and extremely critical questions being asked of our own practices, of the strategies of the movement by those who have been a part of the movement, especially around the questions of visibility and voice, right? And whether, therefore, the question of difference among and between women. I think the ways in which the women's movement has confronted, and I will not call it perfect, we have many miles to go, but that it is possibly the only social movement that has not shied away from the question of difference and hierarchies and inequalities, not just divergences, but inequalities and hierarchies among women, and how do they actually shape our agendas, asking very tough questions to ourselves about who gets seen as women, who gets to inhabit the space of being women, who gets to speak on behalf of being women, what are the symbols that we use, what is the vocabulary that we use, what is our language, who get to be leaders, who in that sense get to speak on behalf of what women need, right? And so I think this question also of asking questions of ourselves, of this kind of very powerfully, in fact, and these questions have been asked. Cynthia ma'am spoke about the axes of caste, but these questions have also been very powerfully asked, for instance, on the lines of community, a lot of reflexive thinking about our own strategies in terms of, has our movement been implicitly Hindu? What has it meant for minority women? What has it then meant also for the trajectory of the larger politics that has gotten shaped in our nation? I mean, have we in inadvertent ways also contributed then to the visibilizing of a certain community as Indian? These have been tough questions that the movement has asked itself and made concrete changes, right? Giving up, for instance, something like Kali for Women, when we ask the question, why is our first feminist publication taking on the name of a Hindu goddess, right? What does that symbolism really then mean for the movement? These questions have also been asked, for instance, very centrally in the context of questions of sexuality. Why are why have lesbian women not been a part of our struggles? How do we look at, for instance, the question of sex work? How do we, and we've had these very difficult histories where, we've refused to sometimes on 8th March, march with each each other because we didn't see eye to eye on these questions. But I think what is important is the fact that there has always been this sort of a space within the movement to ask these questions, even when they have been very difficult, sometimes extremely contentious, sometimes extremely sort of contradictory kinds of conversations. We've also asked these questions, for instance, in the context of the axes of disabilities. And I remember Anita Thai's work here. She's not here with us anymore, who's asking, again, very powerful questions about what happens to the agenda of disability and disability rights. Do we, again, through some of our own movements, for instance, around, sex selection and so on, do we actually reinforce an ableist language? Do we reinforce the idea of bodies with disabilities not having the right to live, and so on? And I think, therefore, this reflexivity, this kind of an internal critique that we've seen within the women's movement, broadly around what I'm calling the question of difference, the axes of it have been, and I'm not going into the axes of region because Prateeti spoke about it rather powerfully, but also that, right? I mean, what have been the margins of our centers? So this reflexivity, this internal critique, I think, is unprecedented. And often we have cast this very powerful, actually, what I see as probably the most the most important, the most salient feature of our movements as the fragmented nature of our movement. But I actually see this kind of a space for constant internal critique and reflexivity as possibly the greatest strength of the women's rights movements in India. And its ability to therefore question its own languages, vocabularies, practices, strategies, rethink campaigns. And therefore, I think that is what has allowed our movement in some ways to stay relevant and grow in new directions, right? Take up questions of women who have not seen themselves as having representation within this movement and its leadership and its organizations, and in a very rightful sort of a way. So I'm just saying that while we think about this idea of giving to gain, I think we need to go back therefore two ideas, and I think I'll just highlight those and stop. The idea, I think, once again, of the personal as political, which has been a slogan of the movement for the last 50 years. But what does that then mean for us in this sort of a renewed context? How do we link then movement ideas, what we do in the movement, also to the ways in which we conceptualize living in a neoliberal capitalist world? Can we be feminists if we are not simultaneously anti-caste, if we are not simultaneously anti-capitalist, if we are not simultaneously standing in for other kinds of rights, right? And I think again and again, and especially this context of conflict, shows us the problems with being feminists who don't see these other problems. Right? We see the ways in which agendas of white feminism actually dovetail with extremely extremely aggressive, violent, destructive politics, because it refuses to actually take seriously the question of just that we can't just look at the question of does gender matter, but very seriously look at the question of what else besides gender matters. And I think finally also going back to very, very rich feminist insights on looking at the interconnectedness of the institutions of the family, community, the state and market, and the ways in which they reinforce, they feed into each other. And so how do we see these linkages of what is happening in Iran with what is happening at our national level, with what is happening with, for instance, the Ladki Bahin Yojana in Maharashtra, to what is happening then in my home when my brother refuses to sort of give me land rights that the Hindu Succession Act amendment guarantees me. And I think renewing our commitment to making these kinds of critical linkages, I think, is the way that we can, and I always therefore say that 8th of March is not a day of celebration. It is a day of commemorating the struggles of those on whose shoulders we stand. It is a day of reflecting on where we come from and where we have to go. And I think in therefore commemorating and remembering therefore the giants whose shoulders we stand on, I think it is also therefore about renewing our commitment to asking the tough questions and making, in that sense, these very critical sort of connections. I think that's what I will say and stop.
Yeah, I have one more question, Dr. Gole, to you. What have we learned as a feminist movement from the queer movement, LGBTQIA movement? Has it been a humbling experience, or has it been we have withdrawn from discourses? Yeah.
I think it has been, I think two things centrally that I think feminist movements have learned from queer movements. One, they have really helped us see the instability of the feminist subject, this idea of women in whose name we speak. Queer movements have really helped us sort of decenter that idea of, we started with sex and gender, which was a useful idea, but also what is happening with gender. But I think the other very important thing that the queer movements have also given us is really furthered and complicated our understanding of the family, household, marriage, conjugality as systems. Because also in a lot of ways, some of our earliest campaigns of women's movements have also been inadvertently about reinforcing conjugality as a space of safety for women and the family form. So a lot of our push has been towards how do we create equality for women within family forms. And I think what queer movements have really taught us is to look at the family. I mean, feminist movements said it, but I think queer movements have really brought it to the center. To think about the family, therefore, and the family form as not some sort of a natural institution within which we can relate with to each other, and how do we then think about an ethics of care and love, and an ethics of mutuality that is not actually tied up to these systems of kinship, and which also emanate in that sense from some sort of a loyalty to the gender binary and the idea of gender binary. So I think again those are difficult, they have been difficult conversations, but I think there has also been a lot of productive tensions around these questions, I think, within what we would possibly call quote unquote mainstream feminist movement, though that's not a word I'm very comfortable with using, because that's also a way of then saying some of us are mainstream and some others are margins. And I think, if we think about movements in the plural, then we may also not want to think about it as strictly mainstream versus margins. But that I think has been some of the, two major sort of insights from queer movements to learn. And I think that also then allows for thinking of solidarities in new ways, because then you are also, for instance, thinking about, different kinds of bodies which may not necessarily inher around having a uterus or whatever, as also possible allies in the struggle for social transformation.
Yeah, very good. I think all of you have enhanced our horizons of sensitivity, sensibility, and also the new knowledge that we have got from all 5 presentations. Now the floor is open for questions and answers. Yeah. Please unmute and ask your question, or even share. Your reflections you can share. Are there any questions or sharing happening? Then I'll go for a second round, and I will ask Comrade Amarjeet Kaur that how do you see the pathway for future?
Are you on mute, Comrade Kaur?
I think her audio is not.
Yeah, we're not able to hear you. I think you have to unmute.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Okay.
So with the presentation of all, lots of learning today and assertion that things move on, and there is always a forward looking, but always we know there will be attack depending on the kind of ruling dispensations are around us, nationally or internationally. This will happen, but whatever we achieve doesn't get lost, because then those who have tasted the rights won't let it go. So there will be fight for preserving for them. Women's movement now has to come out of those kinds of dichotomies which Dr. Sneha was pointing out. It's very, very important for us because uh, we have to remember this thing, and women's movement must face this question, that anything happening internationally in war or conflict situation, or within the countries when regressive regimes are there, those who are in the weakest wicket will be facing the biggest attack. So women will face, in our country, Dalits will face, and in several countries, including our country, the minorities, or in some countries not named as minorities, immigrants, they will face. So this has to be understood, and this makes us to learn a new thing. You cannot say we will not speak on this, we will not enter in this debate, we will not assert on this question, because it is a larger political question. But it is politics which is deciding everything. It is those who are ruling, they are deciding. It is all international economic scenario which is deciding. It is all that competition which is deciding everything. So why can't we understand this thing, that our rights will be on stake, weakest sections will be first under attack. That's what. So we should not allow women to be used for their politics. You see, the way it has been used in Iran, which is been pointed by others also. So we will decide our agenda, and that is where we have to be very careful whenever there is a secularism and democracy under attack. If we talk about our country, we must know women will be the first targets, and then will be Dalits and minorities will be, if we talk of our country. Similarly, internationally, we see those who are
Okay.
in the receiving end, women and those sections. They may be immigrants, they may be anything, there will be target. And
Thank you.
religion is used by all sections of society. From all sides, it is used again to subjugate those whom they want to subjugate. So we should not allow either religion to use us. We should not allow the political agenda of suppression and oppression, or dictatorship or authoritarianism, or economic agenda of supremacy, the way the war is going on now. This war is nothing to do with regime change. It is actually for control of resources. Madura had nothing to do as far as narcotics are concerned. It is purely 20% oil resources in the whole world belong to Venezuela. And Iran also has almost more than 10% of oil resources from the world view, and very good and big mines of zinc and gold mines are there. So the new earth rares which they are talking about, India is very rich in that, and Iran is also very rich in that. And what we are also finding in this whole economic battle between the imperialist powers and between international corporates, they want to control all routes. It is roadways, or it is waterways, or it is airways, all trade routes they want to control. And this is how we can see, when Hormuz is at present in the midst of things, you can understand how this is becoming an instrument for Iran also, to how to shape the war. And this is also an area where the imperialist powers want to control it. Similar thing was how to control Caspian Sea, to control red waters. This all we have been listening from 70s onwards, all these control of resources and all. So that is the war about once again. So as women's movement, I think it's very important for us to continuously understand, especially work with the younger generations, to understand how the rights which they are enjoying today, how the battle was fought in winning those rights, and why they are under attack. For example, in Gujarat, the latest what is there, what is our right under Indian constitution, and the right which we achieved through the special marriage act was, you cannot ask two individuals to tell that you have to change your religion or you have to take permission from your elders and all. But what is Gujarat talking about? Totally anti-constitutional position that government is taking. So you can't look at that question only from the point of view what the ruling party is thinking over there. It is attack on constitution. So that law was brought in 50s, knowing that there were attacks on those who were marrying out of different religions. They were marrying. So that law became very useful for as far as this question of individuals' rights are concerned. That is under attack. So it has to be taken up at that level. Similarly, you look at the dichotomy. Chief Justice of India, a case of domestic workers is before him, and he suddenly starts blasting on the trade unions and says that domestic workers don't have any labor rights, whereas domestic workers have already been recognized in the Payment of Wages Act in the schedule that it is a work, and we have to decide about their minimum wages, their social security, their future social security, etc., etc., their workplace safety. But suddenly CGI on that petition is taking a position which is against Indian law itself. So when the threats come, it very much depends who are dictating and who are influencing. So you cannot say I cannot enter into this area for criticism and all. So if it is democracy and secularism, that is an agenda of women, we should understand. Women's movement cannot keep it behind its back that this is not my agenda. It is our agenda. War question, it is our agenda. Asking for world peace, it is our agenda. And nobody should try to dictate us on as far as religion is concerned. We know what we have been facing, how the women were used against women. Don't we know how women were used against Gujarat rights? Don't we know how women were used when Roop Kanwar's Sati issue came? Don't we know women were used in Punjab, telling that women must have a dupatta on head and this and not to have these dresses and all, because that was being dictated by Khalistanis? How the women were being dictated in Jammu and Kashmir? Those who don't want to wear burqa, they were told you have to wear burqa. Those who don't want to wear bindi, they were forced, you must have bindi. All these are part of our history. We have been facing it. So this learning process has to be there, and we have to work more with the next generations, younger generation. They must be taught about the history of women's movement, our achievements, and how the difficulties came even in those achievements, and we had to bounce back. So it's very, very necessary. Now these labor codes, you can't look at labor codes from men's point of view. Labor codes are too much against women. The wage question will be, our Equal Remuneration Act came after International Women Year was declared by UNO in 1975. We got that act in 1976. Now that act is being repealed. That had gender connotation, that men and women for the same work and similar work will have same wages and same facilities. Now that act is repealed. And now in the new form, same work will have different wages, because they will only change the designation. Then you are putting them into hazardous industry in the night shift without any safeguards. Then their maternity benefit calculation will be going down. Women will be going out of the maternity benefits in the coming days. And informalization of the formal economy is being pushed, and women are vast majority only in informal economy, unorganized sector, where already there are no protections. So you take any policy matters. So it is very, very serious issue for us in the coming days to, look at the policies, look at the question of Indian constitution and safeguarding that constitution, look at the question of wars and conflicts everywhere, how the governments function. Why did they name Sindoor as operation after Pahalgam? Because the men died and women had gone with their husband, so everybody had not gone with the husband, there were families also. But this concept, putting it in this way, and the very girl who was whose clippings were used again and again, that girl Narwal from Haryana, and she was you see, they started following her and started abusing her when she said, please do not convert this issue as a Muslim versus Hindus. Don't attack Jammu Kashmir students everywhere. So those who are trying to vitiate Indian environment, this is high time that the women's movement must look into this question of constitution, of democracy, of secularism. No to wars, it be with our neighbors. No to wars, it is in any continent, because wars are devastation for women. For all, it is devastation. For women and children, it is maximum, and their rights are taken away. And they are just thrown to fetch for themselves. This is what happens. So in such a situation, I think I would rather say that lot many points have been raised by all of you. In the end, I want to say the wars are for controlling natural resources. It is a game plan of those who are big cartels and corporates. It is a common man who suffers. It's not only India, the kind of situation we are facing. Several countries are facing similar situation from their ruling conglomerates. And where the ruling sections are liberal, progressive, situation is little bit breathing space is there for you. But in most of the places, the trends of Nazism, fascism is emerging. Jingoism of war is being promoted, and somebody is behaving as a SHO of the whole country. Whole planet is a in that your territory, and you are SHO of that territory, and you will dictate terms. This is how Mr. Trump is behaving. So tariff trade war is also part of that, and now physical wars is also part of that. And women can never be receivers of good things out of this. Women will always be pushed back further, and their rights, hard-won rights, will be under attack. So my humble submission to everybody, that we may be working on various subjects at the grassroots level. That is our own agenda. We keep working. But until and unless that agenda at the local level is brought into the ambient of what is happening nationally and what is happening internationally, even our work at the grassroots level will be washed away. So it has to build bridges, it has to build linkages with all national political things, democracy and secularism, and it has to build bridges with the international movement. And international women's movement at present should concentrate on this whole question, that not in the name of women and their rights you wage wars in this country or that country. We do not want, and women are not for any kinds of war. We want immediate cessation of this kind of wars, which is only being fought for only economic gains they are trying to. And that is why, as VIBHUTI ji was saying, why our media is only talking about trade, economy, this will happen, that is, because the war is about economy. So this is the agenda. So how to divert agenda? So in India, you can divert on the latest US treaty thing. That treaty will be making more suffering to rural India. And rural India, again, women will be worst sufferers. And in this informalized economy, women who are already in informal economy, they will be further pushed into that. no good hope for good jobs for women, which can give them sense of little bit liberation and strength that they can fight back. So scenario is very bad, but I am never hopeless. We have to be always remembering that what we achieve doesn't get lost, it gets suppressed, and we have to fight back to retain it. And what remains, we have to fight for that. History will not go back. Change is a constant factor, and that is the truth. And science is a constant factor. Science only told us it is not because of women that girls are being born one after another. Science told us how X and Y chromosome act, and she is not responsible. Male is responsible. So these arguments could come in the women's movement. Science told us this amniocentesis test is meant for taking care of the baby in the womb if the baby is sick. But that amniocentesis test, that science was converted by the patriarch forces into sex determination test. So this always happens. And then we fought back on that also. We fought for against female infanticide. Then we fought against the sex determination test. When they came that you have sex selection, such kind of medical treatment has come, so we fought against it. In India, sex selection will mean everybody will try to have male, only few will be asking for female. So then again, this ratio between male child and female child, what will happen to our society? So science helps us, but then science is misused by those who want to continue with their all the backward thinking and backward processes and the patriarchal thinking process they want to. So this is there. I am very hopeful for future. After every situation, some new lessons come, and I think this Iran war will tell us. Afghanistan war also, they said they are going to liberate women. Here also they are saying this thing, but in Afghanistan they could not liberate women. And for 20 years they ruled to finish Talibanis, and after 20 years they hand over the power to Talibanis. And earlier they create Talibanis to create problem in Afghanistan. Who doesn't know IS? IS was created by United States of America only. And then you want to remove Assad. So you use same IS and remove him. And then you say now IS must be removed. And then you again want to intervene into Syria, into Lebanon, into Egypt, everywhere. So this game plan, this whole political jugglery comes, and domination, control of countries, control of the power. They want Katputli to be regime there, so that we have not forgotten that they were friends of Saddam Hussein. Iraq-Iran war was fought and America was supporting that war. The day Saddam Hussein decided my oil wells are my nation's property, I will be nationalizing. From that day, the very great friend United States of America of Iraq regime became their enemy. And they saw to it that they use a mass destruction weapon as a plea to attack Iraq. Even while knowing Mr. Flax, who was heading the committee, he gave a report there are no mass destruction weapons. So when he informed the United States of America, he was told, don't declare it, come back. And then he kept telling, what are you doing? But they said, no, well, there is no issue of mass destruction weapon. You have told it is not there, but we have to change the regime, because they wanted to control those oil wells. So this whole thing is surrounded around economy, and that's why at the grassroots level, I am not surprised our friends are telling that they do everything, but they don't have rights on land, they don't have political participation, they don't get spaces there. This all we are finding. So everything goes on this economy. So women's movement should be concentrating on their issues, but should be indulging into, integrating into the larger questions in the country, larger questions internationally.
It's very powerful statement. Gave a lot of energy that we have to think both locally and globally. We have to act both locally and globally. Here there are three comments. One is by Dr. Naseem Akhtar. Would you like to speak, or should I read it from the chat box? We often say that if women stand on their own feet, become financially independent, they will be empowered. But I feel that this is not entirely true because they are still being harassed and oppressed just as much as other women. I think, yeah, that we have seen. So I think one of the panelists can take it up. And Epstein's case, Anjali Bedekar, she's a renowned trade unionist. Would you like to speak, Anjali ji? Hello, are you there? She has written in the chat box that Epstein case showed how powerful men across industries and nations build a network of powerful and can go on exploiting women with law and society conveniently turning a blind eye. So that is another thing. Yeah. Sneha has responded to that. Can you just speak, Sneha? Yeah.
Actually, I'd responded. She had another question earlier about coalition and coalition building.
Yeah. So
And I
take
was just
care of both those questions.
yeah, I was just responding actually two things about coalition building. And I've always found Bernice Johnson Regan's, it's a very old piece about coalition building, I think very useful to think about the idea. So where Bernice Johnson Regan says that we form coalitions not because we are friends of each other or we are happy with each other or because coalitions are nice cozy homes. She says in fact that when we are with people just like ourselves, it feels cozy and nice. It's like being in a warm space, fuzzy space. But warm fuzzy spaces often come with barred windows, and when you have barred windows, the winds of change can't enter. So she says that we need to build coalitions on the street, and that is bloody work. She says bloody in the sense that it is work that is hard. It is work that is that always in that sense comes with hurt and disappointments and all of that. But she says we build coalitions because without coalitions we will not survive. We build coalitions because they are necessary, not because they feel like nice spaces. So I think that idea that coalitions will not be warm fuzzy spaces, and I think what Comrade Kaur was also saying, that yeah, we can continue working on issues with people who feel like our own, but we have to therefore forge these coalitions in blood and in sweat on the street, because without that we will not survive. So I was just responding to that question that she had. And I think just very quickly about the Epstein files, I think they really also, I mean, many a times we feel sometimes older concepts are not useful anymore, right? And we have, I think in some ways, given up on the concept of patriarchy. It has its own problems, but I think the Epstein case also in some ways allows us to think about the creation in some ways of what a global patriarchal order of powerful men, and also women who want to partake in that power, because we should not also forget that Epstein was aided and abetted by Ghislaine Maxwell, right? So also this and so I think the conceptual idea of patriarchy, and not just then of men and sort of a cohort of powerful men, I think is a very useful idea therefore for us to think about the network then of power, privilege, and the network therefore of impunity also that comes up through that. So I think the Epstein case is also once again a kind of in some ways, it's also a clarion call on why we still need 8th of March. I mean, anyone who says, why do we need International Women's Year? I think the Epstein case and what's happening in the world around us, I think it's also a way of thinking about why we still need an International Women's Day. That goes back to remembering, in that sense, these conceptual moves that the women's movement has made it possible for us to see and therefore analyze in the world. So that's just something I wanted to add.
Yeah. Thank you, Dr. Gole. And now I would like to ask Dr. Cynthia. Cynthia, can you give your final remarks? And how do you see what is your vision of the future course of action that the women's movement has to take? Hello, Cynthia ji, are you there? Yeah.
Yes, very much.
Yeah.
I was just listening very carefully while the others were speaking. I've already said from my side that it's important that everybody work together. But the basis on which we work together is also important. Sneha Gole said about, coalitions being framed in blood or formed in blood or forged in blood. The fact of the matter is that, as um, uh, Miss Kaur said, Amarjeet Kaur said, that it's always the ones on the weaker wicket who are going to be facing the music at any level. So, in what way will these coalitions be different from the kind of coalitions that are taken up, by political parties, for instance? Will feminist coalitions center the concept of equality, respect, or will the existing social um, fragmentation continue to reflect? Because we who have been part of minority voices, we continue to feel that a lack of respect, for, if you like, or respect, or a lack of importance given. People are taken on board, but not given due importance. They're there for their representation, but are they? I mean, they're there for participating, but are they truly given space and voice to represent? So who takes the leadership? This is it enough only to be inclusive for the sake of the optics, or is there a true respect for difference, where the LGBT, the queer movement, or the LGBTQI plus movements are very assertive and strong? That may not be the case, for instance, say with Adivasi women. They don't. They're quite mild in the way they present and talk. But are their interests and issues going to be centered? Dalit women have faced historical disrespect for their views and disregard. Will they be given the due? Will their opinions, agenda points, etc., their issues be given due respect, or will they be just seconded or added on to whatever's going? That's the question. That is a political question I want to raise. And what will, when we say coalition, will we be able to um, uh, give the respect and the voice, to those who have not had that? Because when there's, it's not about just leadership. It's also about voice. It's also about the direction. Will you be willing to take the movement in a direction which you cannot control? That is my question.
This is the question. These are the questions we also faced in the recently concluded Maharashtra Stri Mukti Parishad, which was taking an stock of last 50 years of women's movement. Lot of so many uncomfortable questions which are posed to us, and we all have to seek answers collectively. Thank you, Dr.
Vibhuti ji,
Yeah.
Vibhuti ji, I have to say that one is at micro level, we keep working as organizations on our agendas. Then those who are on the similar agenda, they will be more comfortable working with each other. That can be, because when we talk of coalition and unity at various level coming together, it will be at various levels.
Correct.
And it will not be permanent. Issue to issue, sometimes you have to come together, where the agenda is on the top and leadership question is not the main question, that who will be dictating whom. My experience of all these more than 50 years of various coalitions, I think I have been in more than 100 coalitions at different times. Coalitions came, worked for some time, and then that disintegrated. Some new coalitions and new groups came up.
Correct.
So we have to be open on this question. For example, if suddenly something comes against Indian constitution, which will hit every Indian, it will hit. So where is the question for us to keep waiting? We will get space or leadership or respect or not. The question is, democracy remains, our struggle will remain at the grassroots. If the policy framework of the governments is progressive, then our agenda at the lowest level will remain. Otherwise, it will be washed away. So, I think this dichotomy comes in the minds of various organizations when their experience shows that they went into groups and they went into coalitions, and then it is some other people who dominate and we don't get spaces. This happens. So there is no question of permanent coalitions, but there is always a question of coming together issue to issue also. Also, also last point which I want to say that which Gole was also mentioning, that is that we have to understand this patriarchy is not man versus woman. This patriarchy and hierarchy is in the sense of those who are power structures. And from that point of view, those who follow that patriarchal value system, men or women, they will be moving in a one trajectory. And those who are against patriarchal value system, they are men or women, they will be moving in a different trajectory. This will happen. So basic thing is how is the value system of those who are imposing patriarchy. So that is also important we keep in mind. But it will in the coming days, the situations will further worsen in our country, situations will further worsen in our region, situation will further worsen internationally. So we cannot keep thinking in the sense, can we and can we not? We have to immediately see to it what hampers a common human being and what hampers human rights of all. And that should be our agenda, because if human rights are violated, those who are weak, gender, or through religion, or because of their caste hierarchy situation, they will be the worst affected. So from that point of view, they should be first to jump into these kinds of situations to see to it that we don't allow pushback, we make our points. Thank you.
May I just add? Thank you so much, Amarjeet ji. I think you made a very important point there. It's just that I just wanted to add, though, that here the question of I agree that those who are having a pro-patriarchy position will go counter to those who are going to the anti-patriarchy. But if you're all movements, then we cannot afford at any point. I mean, we have to interrogate our own positioning and ask if our positioning is reinforcing patriarchy or power in imbalance, or it is enhancing equality. Yes. If it is the hierarchy is not being challenged, then we have to address that even within ourselves, because that is what has been our experience. That even among the women's movements, some people want to hold the fort and run the show, and those who have not had a voice in the past will continue to be feeling that their voice is not heard. And so that is the thing. So that shift, that uncomfortable position of those who have been in have made the space and have had the voice, how will they yield that space or give the voice or be silent while other voices are raised? That becomes very, very crucial. Thank you.
Thank you. And we have seen some of the extremely horrendous statements coming in the name of feminism when it came to Middle Eastern war, that even 10,000 children are killed. I have no problem, but we have to defeat. No, these are the kind of things come in the name of feminism, which is extremely disturbing. Yeah, Dr. Gole, you want to speak? Yeah. No, it's okay.
I just wanted to just add to what Sandhya ma'am was saying, just to say that it's also therefore a question of how do we define what are our feminist issues, and what do we really see then as feminist issues. And I think that the one big question for the women's movement is we still don't in the strictest sense actually see caste as a feminist issue. It's not Dalit women's problem. I mean, do we think of caste as a feminist issue? And if we think of caste as a feminist issue, then the question of what can we do doesn't arise, because when we see something as our, like if we see patriarchy as our issue, we never have the question of what can we do about it. Similarly, do we see caste as a feminist issue? I think
Male
that is a
hierarchy.
central question.
Correct.
Correct.
And so, yeah, and so
Absolutely.
many young lives are lost to honor crimes, their own biological parents killing them, no, when they so-called quote unquote transgress the caste border.
In fact, here the another aspect, ethnicity also comes into being when we are talking about Northeast. Somewhere that is again getting
Very important.
sidelined.
Yeah,
Even ethnicity and the class, intersectionality of class in ethnic groups, that also creating the kind of experiences we had in terms of women's movement in Northeast is very different from pan-Indian experiences,
yeah,
because we had to fight state-sponsored violence,
correct.
and we had to fight our own people's
Internal,
violence, and it is always the women and children who paid the price.
correct. Yeah,
Professor Vibhuti, if I may make a suggestion,
yeah,
just like you have had this stock taking in Maharashtra, maybe it's a good idea to think of having regional, women's movements gathering together in
correct.
various sections of the society, and then have an apex,
Yeah,
meeting
correct.
where we thrash these matters out. Because
During the
without
80s, we used to have from 75 to 85, we had so such interaction that crystallized our ideas about action strategies, what Comrade Amarjeet was saying about the strategies, no, long-term strategy and day-to-day tactics.
even agenda setting, no? What is
Yeah.
on our agenda? Sneha Gole correctly pointed out. Do we see caste as a feminist agenda?
Correct.
Very important. And
Yeah.
how do the women who are experiencing caste, or the men who are experiencing caste, what are their life experiences? How
Correct.
do we as feminists or women who believe in equality, how do we respond to that?
Correct.
You see, how does patriarchy disadvantage the men from the disadvantaged communities, marginalized communities? Without addressing these, without looking at these questions, workers, the kind of work, the kind of dehumanizing, the kind of the loss of identity and suffering that happens due to forced migration for economic, survival. What do the families undergo?
Correct. And why does the state do anything? Because they because of their social location, no, of a caste, Dalit, Bahujan, Adivasis. Yeah.
So we need
And
to
also,
have these dialogues,
yeah,
at regional levels, and then have an apex discussion at least.
Yeah.
I feel, at a country level, pan-Indian level.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah. So now last word from Dr. Prateeti Barman. Please go ahead and show what's the pathway for
Ma'am,
future.
I think I have put forward it already, because
Okay.
in my PPT itself, and in that context, looking into the whole discussion, I feel in terms of Northeastern state, the experiences of Northeastern women and the various issues which we have faced over the years is very different.
Yeah, but
In
still, how
terms
do you
of
see the
our
pathway for future? How do you see?
in the context, in the context of Northeast, the ethnic violence is still there. So that is again something happening. Again, the women and children are being subjugated in that context. So somewhere we need to address that aspect, and that is not being highlighted also, or that is not being addressed also. Even the state governments are also not doing, in terms of the state responsibility, that responsibility cannot be seen in the state government level, and neither it can be seen in the central government level. We are talking about wars, but there are wars happening here in Northeast also, in the name of ethnic violence, that is not being discussed. So somewhere we need to, as like when we are talking about women's movement, when we are talking about solidarity, you cannot leave behind these ethnic groups, which are the majority of this 8 states of Northeast region. The problems which we are facing, yes, it is in papers, as I said, it looks good in terms of gender equality and education and employment. It is looking good, but at the real sense, very few, when again I'm talking about intersectionality of class, it is very few women who are coming from here. We do not have the caste system as strong as rest of India, but we do have a class system where we experience that in terms of your class, in terms of your access to education, in terms of your access to resources. So all these things are still there, and the grassroots organizations are playing quite a good role in terms of working with the women groups, in terms of giving them various ways to come up with their own skills and crafts and all that stuff. But in the larger section of women still are left behind. So that needs to be there where we need mentorship, there where we need the solidarity, there where we need the state's responsibility as well. And we have the women of Nagaland, women of Manipur, women of Assam have gone through the state-sponsored violence as well. So that is again not being
Except for
addressed.
human rights organizations, no one has taken up UCL and
Not
APDR.
yes.
Yes, you are right. Correct.
Dr. Barman, my
Yeah.
relationship with the Northeast is for last almost 45, 46 years. I have been traveling to that side. And I would say that political and economic interest of those in the political powers, they have their agenda whenever this ethnic violence happens there.
You are not even allowed
Yes,
to meet the people, no?
Yeah.
Amarjeet Kaurji.
Yeah, they are
Your
not
delegation
allowing.
was not even
They are
allowed
not
to meet them.
allowing the
Not
delegates to go there.
presently.
The
Yeah.
whole political economy of insurgency is very strong.
Yes. So there was a economic reason also about the natural resources to be handed over to somebody in hill areas that caused the concern, and that is how then later on this was developed into ethnic violence. What happened in Manipur, and even you cannot have patchwork. The patchwork was that Metai person be made chief minister and Kukai person to be made deputy chief minister, and that woman is not able to go to Manipur. Who is the deputy chief minister? She is sitting here. So when it is a political and economic agenda, then the political powers ignore it. So women's movement should also look into these questions and go into what is happening. So we cannot keep ourselves aloof. It is central government or the state governments, wherever it is. And your high court played a very dirty role when they gave a judgment, and that became the clue. And suddenly this thing started happening in Manipur. So I have been watching the tensions in Meghalaya. I have been watching the tensions in Tripura. I have been watching the tensions in Manipur, even in Assam. For all these 45, 46 years since my relationship and visiting those areas, we know it. But Northeastern region women's movement has come a long way. It's not that they have not. There was not so much of they in discourse in the women's movement all over India, which they are now. They are there, especially the incidents which happened if two
The
and a half
network
years
also,
ago.
Northeast network is also very
Yeah.
active.
No,
And
I'm
it is
not
there
denying
now.
that.
There is a
I'm not
network
denying
also.
that. But the
Yes.
thing is,
Yes.
somewhere
Yeah.
we need to see
Yes.
that
More
certain things are
integration is
little
needed.
different.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yes. Thank you. I think we have dealt with so many mind-boggling issues globally, regionally, nationally, subnationally, and also local challenges that we are facing. In response to jingoistic rhetorics of the imperialists during beginning of the 20th century, it was Comrade Clara Zetkin who said that what we want is a bread. We don't want bullets. We want milk for our children. We don't want tanks. Wars just take away our children. They create tremendous human miseries. And there was a big rallies in several countries, and the main anthem was "As we go marching, marching in the beauty of the day, a million darkened kitchens, 1,000 mil loaves of grey, all touched with all the radiance that a sudden sun discloses for the people hear us singing bread and roses, bread and roses. As we come marching, marching to battle, we battle too for men, for they are in the struggle, and together we shall win. Our days shall not be sweated from birth till life closes. Hearts starve as well as bodies. Give us bread, but give us roses. As we come marching, marching, unnumbered women dead go crying through our singing their ancient call for bread, small art and love, because their trudging spirits knew. Yes, it is bread we fight for, but we fight for roses too. As we go marching, marching, we are standing proud and tall. The rising of women means the rising of us all. No more the drudge and idler, tend that toil where one reposes, but a sharing of life's glory, bread and roses, bread and roses. And I think the same thing has been echoed in the dream which the Indian feminists have, and which is Sant Ravidas's Begumpura, which was translated, which has been extensively used in the recent times by women's organizations, where in Begumpura, the dream is that the regal realm of sorrowless name, they call it Begumpura, a place with no pain, no taxes, no cares, none owns property there, no wrongdoing, worry, terror, or torture. I have come to take this Begumpura as my own, my distant home where everything is right. So no torture to migrant people anywhere. They do this and that or that. They walk where they wish. They stroll through fabled palaces unchallenged. Oh, says Ravidas, a tanner, now set free, those who walk beside me are my friends. And the similar is the sentiment of a feminist icon, Margaret Atwood. I hope that the people will finally come to realize there is only one race, the human race, and that we all are members of it. And once we achieve this goal, then I think there won't be any wars, there won't be any human miseries, and there'll be justice and peace. We all accept that there can't be peace without justice. And we, as a feminist, we, as a women's rights activist, our major concern is peacemaking, peace building, and peacekeeping. So let us all take a pledge that we will continue the glorious legacy of our foremothers in the women's movement right from the time of Comrade Clara Zetkin. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. That was well said and reminded Professor Vibhuti.
Thank you so much, ma'am, and thank you to all the panelists for this insightful discussion. With all of your permission, I would like to proceed forward with the
Please,
final
please.
vote of thanks.
Yes.
Thank you, ma'am.
Yes.
As we conclude this panel discussion on rights, justice, action for all women and girls, I, Priyanka Negi, on behalf of IMPRI Gender Impact Studies Center, New Delhi, extend my heartfelt gratitude. Our deepest thanks to our chair and experts for today. Thank you to all our esteemed panelists for the insightful and thought-provoking addresses. Your expertise and perspectives have greatly enriched today's discussion and provided us with valuable takeaways on this critical topic. We deeply appreciate your time and contributions. We also thank all participants who joined us live, raised pertinent questions, and contributed to today's dialogue. For those watching later on our YouTube channel, listening to the podcast, or reading our publications, we deeply value your engagement and interest. We hope you continue to join us in future IMPRI Web Policy Talk and Web Policy Learning programs. Wishing you all a wonderful evening. Once again, happy International Women's Day. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, everyone.